Hey everyone, I'm Coach Toni. Welcome to Coach Toni's Table, where the madness always meets the method. This is the successful science segment of the Writing on the Board. Today we have special guest, the DJ AONE, with us. Let's get right into it. Hey everyone, Coach Toni here. Welcome back to the Writing on the Board podcast. Thank you for joining me. Just for clarification, because we are in season 2, this is a successful science segment. If you are new here, successful science is when I interview someone who is successful in their own right and I see what school was like for them. The Writing on the Board podcast is a platform to give teachers their voice back. The teaching profession is sinking at an alarming rate. We have over 200,000 teachers who have left the profession in the last few months. So I am amplifying teacher voices. If you would like to share what is wrong with the profession today, please visit www.thewritingontheboard.com/submit. I look forward to hearing from you, but let's get right into successful signs. Our guest today needs an introduction so amazing that I'm gonna let him do it himself. Ooh. This is the DJ AONE in the building with us. Who are you? Welcome.
Who am I? What's up? What's up, Coach Toni? How are you?
First of all, let me just say, this interview is about how many months in the making, sir?
Ma'am, I don't know. I don't know.
One of the busiest people that I've ever met. So go tell people who you are. Who are we speaking to today?
Well, here we are. I am the DJ AONE, known to many as Music Savior. No, just playing. Just DJ AONE, guy from Atlanta, Georgia. I came up on the music scene at 12 years young. I started my career out professionally with Lil Scrappy, Trillville, Lil Jon, interning on what was then 97.5 in Atlanta, now 107.9. I went on to tour with some of the biggest acts you've ever heard of, work with some of the biggest acts you've ever heard of. It's a little thing called Google, and put in the DJ AONE. I'm not really big on talking about myself. So enough about me. What's up, Coach Toni? How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. So the reason why I have AONE on, right? First of all, let's start with this. I think most of you who've been listening to season 1, you may not know the music that comes on at the end of each episode is a track from my album. The man that is next to me actually named this album. So he's like the godfather of my album. So what happens is every season of the Writing on the Board podcast is 12 episodes. I don't care how long it takes me to make 12 episodes. Every season is 12 episodes because there are 12 tracks on my album. So it looks like in season 3, I probably will be putting out content twice a week instead of once because I'm getting ridiculous amounts of teacher submissions about the frustration in the classroom, which is, I guess, a good or bad thing if you want to think about it in terms of my content. But every single season has 12 episodes. So this is episode 1 of season 2. So when we end this episode, you will hear track number 1 of my album, Trap Tables. And I was in the DJ booth with AONE one day and I played it for him. He was like, "What's that, Trap Tables?" And it stuck. And now that's the name of my album. So first of all, thank you for the name of my album. Everything that you need to know about that album is in the link in all the descriptions of anywhere you can find this video. So check it out when you have the time. But the reason why... Go ahead.
If you have eyes, if you have ears, you need to get your kids Trap Tables. Trust me, you won't be let down.
I'm loving the promotion. I love the thank you. Let's get into it. So I want to know about AONE school life. Do you remember much about your grade school? Like, what's the earliest memory in grade school? Can you remember back to kindergarten?
No, actually I can't.
What's the earliest you got?
The earliest I can remember, I don't know, maybe like 2nd grade, I think.
Okay.
It's so funny. I kind of remember daycare, which is weird, right? Preschool. I can remember some of those days, but I can't remember anything a little after that. But I do remember 2nd grade because I kind of remember school from the teachers that I had, right? Because I wasn't studious at all. One thing I spoke about before, I dropped out of high school to pursue my dream. I was in 12th grade. I had two more credits to get before graduation, and I literally dropped out of high school to go on tour. But my life was molded because of certain teachers that I had along the way. So I wouldn't have become successful without bad teachers and great teachers that I had along the way. One who I still talk to this day, a lady named Miss Alexander. She was, and she wasn't even my teacher. She was actually my sister's teacher, but she was hands down instrumental in me becoming a success story.
What did she do? Because she was
So
your sister's teacher. So that means that she didn't necessarily teach you a subject. So when did you interact with her and what did she do
she
to
had a
motivate you?
program.
Uh
She
huh.
had a program, and she would kill me for not remembering the name of this program. But it also was over 20 years ago. She had a program after school where kids came, and they weren't necessarily behavior problem kids. It was, just children that she pulled together. May it be AB students, may it be in school suspension every day students. She didn't care. She put students together and she would give you life building skills and teach you skills on how to move forward in life and just feed life into the students. One day she held up $100 bill and she said, "Who wants this?" And of course, everybody, me, 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 me. Who wants this? Me, 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 me. How can you get this? How can you get this? She kept, how? Everybody kept screaming. Kids, I can do this. I can do that. I just stood up and went and took it out of her hand. And she said, exactly. If you want something, you go and you get it. And that was the start of me being like, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to get whatever I want in life. And my life changed that day with Miss Alexander. My life changed that day. On top of a few other things that happened in my life with some teachers and principals that just wouldn't give up on me because I was a bad student. I skipped school. I was class clown. You know what I mean? Like school for me was fun. School for my teachers was pure hell. You know what I mean?
I have a lot of students that are like you. I can name a few that just need a little extra TLC on because it's rough. It's rough around the edges. So, who were the teachers, or what did they do that really got on your nerves? And was it well deserved, or do you think they just was being extra?
I may skip around here because that's just how my mind works. I remember having a teacher, I think I was in fifth grade, and her name was Mrs. Bush. She told me I would never be anything because I used to entertain. I used to always be singing and dancing and making people laugh and stuff. I never forget, we was in the lunchroom and she was like, "You're not going to be anything. You'll never be a singer. You'll never be anything if you keep going the way that you're going." And look at me now, I entertain 22,000 people a night. I'm a millionaire. Literally. I'm a millionaire, right? In my mind. See what I did there? So, but seriously, she told me I'd never be anything, and here I am. I make a great living for myself, and that stuck with me. And she was the only one. Anybody in between that, I never really thought about again. That told me if I don't do this, if I don't do that. I learned early on in life that I can do anything I want to do.
Who taught you that?
Me and my grandmama. My grandmother was a very, very important piece of this story. My grandmother taught me you can do anything you want to do. I remember telling my grandmother I wanted to drop out of high school. Never forget sitting in her kitchen. I was like, "Grandma, I think I'm gonna drop out of high school." And she looked at me and she said, "You sure you know what you're doing?" I said, "I think I know what I'm doing." And my grandmama told me, "If you fall, I'll pick you up and we'll keep going." And that's how this whole journey started as being a professional DJ.
Interesting. The big takeaway is to never crush a child, their dreams or
Yeah.
whatever. And you know what, to be honest, I've always had situations where teachers say that, and I don't think they understand the gravity of it because they trying to want to scare a child into a certain behavior. And they don't really understand what that does because I'm pretty sure after that day, you didn't turn into the straight and narrow either. You just kept that with you.
Yeah, I've never been straightened ever. No, seriously, I don't. I really was a problem child in school. You know what I mean? And thank God, by the time I got to eighth grade, I had a course teacher, Mr. Craven. His name was Van West Craven. He thought that I should go to a performing arts high school. Have you ever seen the movie Fame?
Yes.
Okay, so my high school was like that. Keenan from Keenan and Kel, Xscape, Outkast, D Woods from Danity Kane. The list goes on. So many famed Juilliard students, DJ A1. Like, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on for my high school. But he thought that I should go there. And he was like, I'm going to help you audition to get into this high school because you had to audition to go
Right.
there. So that was another life changing moment where a teacher changed my life for the better. I don't have too many bad teacher stories that I can remember because if they were bad, I put them out of my brain. I didn't think about them. Only thing that I've ever thought about were all the teachers that helped me move forward because those are my only main memories from school because I honestly didn't spend a lot of time there. The time that I did spend there, I didn't really do much when I was there. You know what I mean? Like I learned the basics, but everything that I know, I learned from my grandmother in life. Like I read exceptionally well. I speak well. Everything that you learn from school, I learned in life. You know what I mean? Because when I was in 10th grade, I took 12th grade literature in 10th grade because my Miss Morgan, I would walk into her classroom and every day she would say, get out. As soon as I walked through the door, get out, get out. I just walked in, get out.
You were
So I
late.
would go across. No, I just walk in, get out. So it had come to a point where I just didn't go to her classroom. I wouldn't go to her class anymore. I just would go across the hall to 12th grade lit. And my cousin just happened to be across the hall. So that's why I started going there. So I ended up getting a 12th grade literature credit in 10th grade because literally the whole entire school year, that's the class that I was in. And that teacher fought for me to get a credit in there because I was doing assignments and interacting and you know what I mean? And I can't remember his name, but he was another reason why I felt like school was okay. I used to have a strong dislike for teachers.
That was just automatic. You didn't just start going to school and hating them. Like what? What?
At some point in my school career, I just did not like teachers because I just felt like they, as a child, you don't understand because of your behavior problems, you create a space for teachers where they can't properly do their job for other students, right? At 37, I understand that. At
Hmm.
12, 13, I don't understand that. So when they're frustrated with me, on top of their normal day to day lives that we know nothing about, you dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to Coach Toni 2 hours before she came into this classroom. You dig what I'm saying? With her own children or with her own family or with her own whatever. And here I am acting out and being disruptive. You know what I mean? Talking too much, causing other students to talk. Now it's time for her to do her job. I didn't understand those things at a young age. But so teachers weren't primarily that nice to me, but I always had this thing. Middle school, elementary school, I always had this thing where teachers still would just like me and love me, and I would be able to wiggle my way out of things and just entertain people, right? Entertain. My grandfather was married to a teacher. Right before she passed, he was married to a teacher for about 25 years, Barbara, who actually, ironically, used to be my mother's homeroom teacher. Put that together.
I just did some math. I'm like, wait, what?
I didn't care for her for a very long time either. But go ahead.
Okay, so one, I think all teachers that are listening to this can appreciate just the appreciation you have now for. I don't know what the teacher was going through. I know that I made it hard for her to do her job. Because I think, honestly, a lot of the things that I see anonymously is like, does anybody care about the behavior that's happening right now? Like, kids had a whole year and change at home. And a lot
Hmm.
of them had zero regulation at home as well. So now
Hmm.
putting them back into a classroom situation is proving to be very stressful for a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers are complaining. They are really tired. And it's usually, you get the comments of, oh, it's just that one kid. If he's absent, we can have a great class. If he's here,
Hmm.
we're not going to get through class. So one, thank you for that. Because I think as someone who is successful, right?
Hmm.
Teachers can now look at that child that may be cutting up and know, like, you know what, it's just an extra dose of patience that I need, and
Well,
maybe he'll understand.
well, I can't say that every teacher should do this, but I do know um, Katrina Williams. Her name was Katrina Williams. She did something that I will forever be grateful for as well. When I was in the eighth grade, she happened to know my mother, and She said all he wants to do, he just sings all day long and plays, and he's just so rambunctious, right? Here's how she got me to be very calm in her classroom. Whitney Houston did a concert at Carnegie Hall in DC years ago.
Okay.
She had a VHS tape of that, and she would say, "If you calm down and be cool, we can watch some of this after school." Whitney Houston was my favorite artist, right? She knew that. After school, she was like, "Okay, well, help me put this together." But unbeknownst to me, what she was doing was she was tutoring me, and I didn't know it. I would go in, and she would be like, "Help me with this. I'm just trying to put together lesson plans for tomorrow or whatever." And she would be like, "Okay, so what's that? What did that paragraph say?" But I was being tutored. And then after that, maybe 30, 40 minutes after that, we would watch a little bit of the Whitney Houston tape. And then at the end of the school year, she gave me the tape. That changed my life. I watched that tape forever. And God aligned it to where I end up performing in that same space that I watched for years. I end up having a show in that same place, Carnegie Hall, that Whitney Houston was in. That was another changing moment in my life because of a teacher.
So the thing that I'm noticing, right? Because I don't know, we've talked a couple of times, but I've done a lot of extra stuff too, with my own dime at that, right? For students that I knew needed it. The trend that I'm seeing now is so many things affected you after school hours.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. So, one, your grandma, shout out to her. I've heard about her many times, like through your interviews and just you talking to me. Shout out to her. And that's for any parents that are listening, please understand that you are the first impact, right? Parents, any adults that are not teachers that are in a child's life, which is why I have my 0 to 3 webinar, because it's like you have to understand that they are listening and seeing everything you do. And even, even if you're not conscious of what you're doing, you need to make the experience a positive one. And your grandmother telling you, if you fall, I'll still be there to pick you up, is huge. My parents were not the people to tell me that. My parents were like, if you fall, you about to fall on your face, right? And I guess they didn't want me to leave before I was ready, so they kind of use a reverse psychology, which I will say didn't really work, because
Okay.
I kind of went into this thing where it was just like, I went into overdrive, even as someone I was on my own very, very early.
Yeah, likewise.
And I just said, you know what? I can never turn back to my parents ever. So, and later on, years later, my father was like, we were just, trying to trick you out. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, because as a child, I held that with me. When you say, don't even come back to this house for toilet paper or toothpaste, now I'm going to just be on the streets and do what I got to do, because I know I can't go back home. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Fortunately, I never really had to do anything overly compromising or anything like that. But I really took some hard knocks, because it was like I was never invited back home. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate that from your grandmother, just that we got this kind of attitude. Obviously, I'm pretty sure she had to show you tough love at some times, because just the person you are already.
No, my grandmother never showed me tough love.
Ooh.
Because of her background, my grandmother would always say, if I have a roof, you have a roof. Anywhere I sleep, you sleep. My grandmother never showed me tough love. My grandmother always showed me how to go get it. If I would mess up a fumble, she would show me what I did wrong and how to correct. My grandmother is single-handedly the best person to ever come into my life other than the woman who birthed me.
Wow. Is she still alive?
No, she passed. And when my grandmother passed, that's when life as I knew it became hard. That's when I learned how to become a man. So my grandmother's handicap was taken away. That's when I learned how to become a man and stand on my own 2 feet.
You think you were
That's when
prepared?
no, I was homeless. I slept out of my car. I lost my apartment because my grandmother, if I didn't have my rent, my grandmother would pay my rent. She'd say something funny like, all right, I'm going to pay your rent so you don't have to come back here.
Okay.
I slept on sofas of friends. I learned a lot when my grandmother died. She held my hand along the way a lot.
So do you think that, would you have changed the way she reared you, given what you know now?
No,
Okay.
everything my grandmother taught me I still use life lessons my grandmother taught me to this day. Sometimes I will hear something and be like, oh, that's what she meant by that. Everybody hears their parents say, one day you will understand, or one day you will get it. You know what I mean? And some days I really be like, oh, it took me 20 years later to understand what she was trying to teach me or tell me.
Was there an adult that was the tough one on you?
My grandfather.
Did it work?
My grandfather, he's, yeah, no. Uh, he My grandfather was like any, sequential black man. By the book, he's straight up and down. But he tells you something, but don't tell you why he's telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me why, just do it. One of those type of, grandfathers. He dropped so many jewels, everybody hears the save for a rainy day thing. He used to always say that. Save your money, save your money, save your money. My granddaddy, save your money. He always has these different things he say, save your money. Money don't grow on trees, but when it do grow on trees, make sure you put a little bit back in the bush. He gives you life lessons that you can take with you, and he's still here with us. He definitely gives you, a little bit of wisdom.
Okay, so far, I'm hearing, like I said before, a lot of stuff about after school. First of all, let's just say this. I think if there's anything that we're learning from this is one, to not take the arts out of school, because there's a whole subset of kids that thrive on that. And two, I think the role that school plays is too big. Just based on talking to you, school fits a certain subset of students, because the fact that it was after school that you got tutored, and after school that you watched your favorite tape of all time at that time, and after school you met with another teacher who helped you determine that I gotta have that go get it attitude. It's kind of seeming like the in school part wasn't really doing much for you.
No, after my grandmother told me that in life you need to know a few different things. You need to know how to read what someone puts in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know how to count the money that you are paid,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to know how to interact and speak well. So all of those things fall up under what? Math, literature, right?
Uh-huh.
Know who you are. Know where you
Okay.
come from. Understand the people that you interact with. What is that? History, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've just touched three main sources of what?
Of school.
Schooling.
But did you
Okay.
do well at those classes?
Let me tell you something. I did well at life. Okay. I can't remember. I mean, I didn't flunk out of school, but I wasn't the best student. And it would really annoy my mother. My mother is someone who is one of the most well spoken women I've ever heard in my life, right? 37 years old, I've never heard my mother use slang terms. I've never heard my mother speak anything other than correct English. And this is on private time. Like, my mother is 100% a lady. So I learned those things. Clearly, I picked up a lot in school. Clearly, I learned in school. Clearly, I had to have learned the
Mm-hmm.
basics
Mm-hmm.
of what you learn in school. Yes. But for the most part, I learned how to function in life. In life.
What would you tell a parent now that has a child that was like you in school? And then what would you tell a teacher?
That's easy. My daughter just graduated high school in December. My daughter was me. So that's how I knew how to get my child out of high school, because she was me. I understood what it took to get my child out of high school, because at the end of the school year, we were looking at my daughter not walking on time. At the top of the school year, we were still looking at my daughter not walking on time. But I knew what it took to get my daughter to buckle down. And not only did she walk on time, but she got awards for outstanding student. She got a Prodigy Award at graduation. So it's like, what I would tell parents, whatever it is that your child is interested in, never take it away. I was a DJ, even in high school. Taking my turntables away from me because I messed up in school was one of the biggest no-nos you could do. My
Hmm.
mother and my stepfather would try to do that. Then I lived with my grandmother, and she would go, "Well, go in there and go in there and play that music, and then come back to this." I'd have an outlet to go to, come back, now I can focus. My daughter, she likes to edit stuff and be on her phone. I would go, "Hey, edit me a video. Since you want to be on your phone, edit me a video. I need the video by 3 o'clock, or I'm taking the phone. Since you so into the phone,
Mm.
give me a video." All right, cool. I got the video. Great. Now let's get on the schoolwork, and then we're going to get back to the video and how to make the video better. So now she has something to look forward to. Let me get the schoolwork done. Now I'm back to doing what I want to do. Find what your child is into and incorporate that into their schooling, and you would have a great and easy life. It gives your child something to look forward to. It gives your child something to, yes, you are rewarding your child for doing something they should do, which is schooling, but sometimes you have to find a different method for certain children. Certain kids, they need certain things. And we as parents have to say, "Hey, man, what are we doing to help our children move forward?" So if your child likes to play the game, "Hey, man, we're going to play the game at 4 o'clock or at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to let you play it all night long. I just need you to do this schoolwork, get your homework done. And man, I ain't gonna bother you. Play that game. I don't care, man. But you have to do what you have to do on your part. I used to tell my daughter all the time, I have a job, you have a job. What's your job, Vanessa? My job is to go to school. How do you get paid? I get paid in good grades. Okay, cool. You make bad grades, you don't get paid. So that means I can't buy those shoes because you didn't make the money. Your money comes in A, B's, and C's. If you didn't make your money, I can't get you the new phone case. I can't get you. You know what I mean? That's how I raised my child. That's how I raised my daughter. That's how I got her out of school. I just incorporated what it was that she liked, and I put it into her schooling, and we got my daughter out of high school.
So then what about the teachers that have to deal with people who were like you?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up on any child. And again, I say the 37-year-old me understands this because you may be the key that unlocks a child's entire world in the future. And all they need is just one person to believe in them.
This is why I think that teachers should automatically get sabbaticals, paid sabbaticals, in their career, because you as one person are saying don't give up, and I'm almost 100% sure teachers are like, sure, but it's not only just one, and it takes a certain amount of energy and passion to not give up on these students, because I know what that's like. I know what it's like to walk into a room and know that there's at least 5 to 7 kids that are on a different type of time, and it's all different types of time, and that can send your head crazy. But if you walk into a space and you really are ready to tackle them, you can. And so this is something that I think a lot of teachers should start to advocate for, is like that sabbatical time. If you get sabbatical time, you're able to take a sabbatical, take it. Refresh yourself, get yourself in the space where you can come back and not give up on certain kids, because you never know what it will help them do. And obviously, most people come into the teaching profession because they want to make a difference. They want to affect kids, right? We want to see them grow. So like for me, the takeaways I'm getting from this is, one, life, right? More life needs to come into the classroom. I was quite a rebel in my last year of teaching, because I would just close the door and say what I wanted to say, and it wasn't on the lesson plan. And I started to teach about financial literacy. All my kids from last year know what an IRA Roth is. I was like, I don't care if you don't take nothing out of this math class. Go open you an IRA Roth at 18 and put something in it. Thank me when you're a millionaire. Like, that's all. And that wasn't on my lesson plans at all. That's something that I was always advocating for that was never really there, because nobody got watermelons, and especially not 100 of them on a truck. We don't live in the country. You know, I'm in New York City. So I'm not going to give you a problem about that. It doesn't make sense. So the life part is definitely in there. The after school part for me rubs me a different way, because I feel like communities should rally around having a lot more enrichment outside of the classroom. I think classroom life is good, but just hearing what you said about people taking that time afterwards, and I'm pretty sure these teachers didn't get paid for the time they spent with you. So shout out to all of them for sure. But I'm really grateful that I had this conversation with you, because there's a lot of things that I think we could pull from learning from a student like you, because I said this in one of my other episodes. It's always the kids that kind of acted up in school that when they end up on a stage where they're accepting an award, some teacher's gonna be like, I knew they was gonna make it. And sometimes I wonder, like, did you really, or were you one of the ostracizers, right? Did you were you the one who told the student they wasn't gonna make it? Because I think about like the Nicki Minaj's of the world, right? She said she was always a character. I'm like, was her teachers really supportive, or were they fake supportive until they knew she blew up?
Probably the latter. Because who really knows, right?
Right. Who really knows? Okay, so my last question for you, okay? I ask every single guest about an internal monologue. An internal monologue, so basically when you're not speaking and you're thinking, do you hear your own voice?
Yes.
Yes? Oh my God, really? Okay. I don't. Do you see pictures?
Yes.
Yes. Let's say you're in the shower, because the last person I talked to about this, he was like, well, if I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about something, right? Or if I'm driving a lady.
Do I hear it in my voice?
Do you hear yourself, like, in your voice?
Yeah. That's not normal?
But I don't. The reason why I ask, school is a one-size-fits-all. We all know that, right? The school system was supposed to just spit out workers, right? Worker bees, that's all it was. And so many things like standardized testing and the way this classroom is set up, it's just so blah. So when kids come in and they are against the grain, there's not really a space for them in the class, because it was just like, you're not going to conform to what goes on in traditional school. Now, I saw a video where two people were talking and they both found out something different about each other. One of them, when they like do not actually speak, they can hear their thoughts in their voice. Like literally, it sounds like they're speaking in their head. The other one can't at all. I'm that second person. I talked to my friend yesterday. He can also like physically see images. Like he thinks in images.
Okay.
And for me, I feel like that is something that is so untapped in terms of how kids learn. Because just imagine, right? When you take a test in silence, you may be able to read yourself the question. I was a kid who needed to read it out loud.
Oh, got you.
Right? I, however, can think in all the noise in the world. But other people say, I can't hear myself think. And I used to be like, why can't you hear yourself think? That don't make no sense. Right? Maybe the differences in us in that capacity should be looked at more. So now whenever I have a guest, I ask them because I want to know if there's a correlation between men and women and also between like how they operate in their brain and who they've become. Thank you for joining me on the stage. Please let people know where they can find more of the DJ A1.
All things the DJ A1, THE DJ AONE. All things the DJ A1 on all platforms. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, MySpace.
When I saw that Verzuz that he did, the energy was amazing. So if you even haven't seen that, please go check that out because I think a lot of things about why I was drawn to his personality too was because teaching is kind of the same thing. I had to take acting classes before I passed my teaching degree.
Oh, wow.
And I'm actually very grateful for that because to be present in a space, to electrify a space, to convey emotions in a space is something that takes a skill if you don't have it naturally. I think you have it naturally because just the way you show up into any space unapologetically and just electrify a crowd is amazing. So I know that bigger and better things are coming very soon, and then I will have to find a new number to call for A1, but I definitely appreciate it. So thank you for joining me. As every episode happens, I dedicate this episode to my younger brother. To those of you who do not know, he recently lost his legs, and I am now his legal guardian. Everything he does is still a motivation to me because regardless of what's happening with him, he makes me promise to always go after my dreams and to never settle for less. And
100.
He doesn't have his legs, right? He's going through a whole life change himself, and he does not focus on that when I'm with him. He does not let that be a crutch for himself or for me. And even though I do have to take care of him now, it's still something that I make sure I let him know that I appreciate his support of me. So that's where this show will end. Thank you once again. And I'm sure the world will be seeing way more of you. I'm putting it out there because I want that to happen for you. You deserve it. This is episode 1 of season 2. Coach Toni signing out. Catch you on the next episode.